Greetings. Welcome to Around the Weird. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange, and the host who might be a ghost. So, again, Around the Weird, I focus on unusual and out of the ordinary kind of books um, that that you typically might not see on many other channels, or maybe you might see them. I'm not laying claim to being that unique, so uh, let's let's get on with today's video. This is going to be the newbie tag. Lucas over at Bits of Lit, or Doctor Strike the Sun, whatever he prefers to be called. His many different monikers. He was like, oh, you should do the newbie tag. So I figured I would do the newbie tag to introduce myself, and let people know who I am and why I love reading books. So the first question is, why did I start this channel? I started this channel, as I mentioned in my introductory video, that I've been part of the Booktube community for a while. In particular, I've been commenting and sharing ideas with Lucas over at Bits of Lit, and just talking about books with some friends. And I started the channel because I wanted to have a place to put all those ideas. If I'm going to be, doing all the aspects of Booktube, I might as well be a part of the Booktube community. I've had a bunch of different channels in the past that I've either deleted or have hidden away. So here's to another channel that I might eventually delete or hide away, which is a bit funny. So yeah, that's about why I started the channel. What are some fun and exciting things that I can bring to this community? I can bring an armoire full of pudding, a cannonball, and a bunch of tacos. Obviously, that's a joke. Some fun and exciting things. I can bring my personal background first and foremost. Again, as I mentioned in my introductory video, I have a background in psychology and higher education administration. And I believe that those are some interesting things that allow me to see a different perspective on any books that I might read. I own a copy of the DSM-5, so I figure, maybe I can just start diagnosing the characters that I read, although that is not what they do in counseling, so don't take my word for it there. What else can I bring? I can bring a love of reading, a lifelong love of reading for 28 years. Well, not exactly 28 years, but for a lengthy period of time, I've loved reading. And so I can bring that joy of reading to this channel. What else can I bring? I guess I guess I can bring my love of weird and strange books, the kind of books that I like to read. I guess I haven't really seen that many people talk about on BookTube, so I guess I can bring that too. Reading books that have a strange touch to them is always fun. Always important to look at the kind of out of the norm books. What am I most excited about in terms of this new channel? I'm most excited about being part of the conversation, sharing my ideas with what I thought about certain books, because there's a lot of books that I've read that the BookTube community talks about, and I know that a lot of people haven't really shared some of my thoughts, so I'd love to be able to tell people, oh, well, I thought about this about Stephen King, or I thought about this with William Faulkner, although I don't intend to actually read William Faulkner for this channel. Or maybe I will. Who really is to say there? But I'm also excited about collaborating with the other channels. Maybe they want to tackle a particularly interesting book, and I would be totally willing to share some ideas there. There's a whole bunch of things that I can do with this channel, and to not just simply talk about books, but to really discuss the medium of literature in general. So I'm looking forward to that. Question 4: why do I love reading? That is a very good question. It's often hard to pinpoint why exactly I love reading. I think it's just amazing that you can be taken to a different world while reading, whether it be the country of Panem and the Hunger Games, the Harry Potter universe, uh, the Salinas Valley in East of Eden, or even even the desert and holes. Um, it's so fascinating how good authors, effective authors, can take you to those different worlds, and really give you that experience that maybe you don't have, and uh, you just discovering a whole new aspect of literature. I also like learning new things. Sometimes I do read nonfiction books from time to time, or even factoid books like the Guinness Book of World Records or Uncle John's Bathroom Reader, which it's I do get a lot out of those. I love to learn little factoids, making them mine, and learning something new about the world. So whether it's filling my imagination or reading something new, learning something new, that's why I love reading. What book or series got me into reading? That is also a tough question. I think there's multiple answers for that. One answer could be joke books. When I was younger, about 7 or 8 years old, I read a lot of joke books, and like that got me eventually into reading other things. Particularly if you can find it, the Jokelopedia, which is a book that I read through many times, and I thought was hilarious. It definitely helped inform my humor style, and it got me, started on reading. Another answer to that question is holes. Of course, you'll see me talk about holes in one of my earlier videos. You can go find that. I might put a link in the description. Yeah, so I really and thoroughly enjoyed holes. And prior to reading holes, it was something that was more of a homework assignment for class. And so I didn't really care much for reading. But Holes got me thinking, wow, books can actually be fascinating and take me on a grand adventure. So I might read more, and that happened. I would also say another answer to that is Harry Potter series, specifically Prisoner of Azkaban. I liked Chamber of Secrets and Sorcerer's Stone, but they didn't they didn't I don't think the series really captured my interest until Prisoner of Azkaban, because it just had an interesting, exciting plot with great twist. And like the twist where, it's spoilers for an old book, but like where Harry learns that his that Sirius Black was his godfather and basically almost killed his parents. Like, that's fascinating. That's great. That captured my interest, and like I wanted to read more after that. So yeah, there are a whole bunch of different answers there. What questions do I have for my favorite booktubers? I wouldn't say I have many questions. Mainly, how do you keep going? How do you not lose interest in creating videos? How do you make your videos have pizzazz? Maybe I might say that to Codex Cantino, or even, and everyone who reads must converse. I would ask them. I would also ask Bits of Lit. I would say to them, Doctor Strike the Sun, what does it mean to be a villain in your eyes? And how does one go about, tell me the step-by-step process for determining yourself to prove yourself a villain? I think that would be, good questions to ask. And there's a bunch of other questions, but I don't have time to, list them all off here. Challenges for starting a channel that would be the hardest to overcome. Again, I think not losing interest and posting on a regular basis is one of the challenges, because if something is just tedious work and it doesn't seem to produce any value for my life in the long term, I might lose interest in doing it. But I think that knowing that books take me on grand adventures and becoming well read is important to me. I think that that's the value. So just remembering that will help me overcome that challenge. Also, getting through particularly difficult books. There's a lot of books that I've picked up that I read a couple pages of, and I've been like, I don't want to read this, and I just discard it. And maybe that's not beneficial for me in the long run. But I figure if I know I'm doing this for the channel and I can rip apart the book if it's particularly bad, that'll be easy to overcome. So that seems like a minor challenge in the grand scheme of things. Question 8: When did I start reading? I actually don't know the answer to that question. My parents have told me that I've loved reading since I was a young lad, like 3 or 4, and I remember reading a lot of books when I was younger. Um, we would go to the library a lot, and I would pick out some books that were age appropriate. So maybe 4 or 5 years old, but I can't give a definite answer to that because those memories fade over time, and it's you don't. I wouldn't say it's easy to remember the first book that I've ever read, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. No, but I've been reading for a while. Like, books have been a great medium for me to find myself and learn more about the world. Where do I read? I'd say everywhere. I read at school. I read. I read in my apartment. I read at work. I work grave shifts, so there's a little time for me to read while I just wait for the time to go by, and while I don't have any initial responsibilities at that time. I also read on long trips. And if I'm in the passenger seat and driving somewhere, I'll read. So my parents live in Iowa and have lived in Florida in the past, so we've always been states away, and I've had to fly home. So I've always brought a book or two with me to read on the flight, and that's been a great way to pass the time and entertain myself while on that flight. Yeah, so I read pretty much everywhere. I wonder if there's anybody who just reads at home and doesn't read anywhere else. If you do, feel free to comment below, and we can talk about that. What kind of books do I like to read? I would say I like to read pretty much everything, except for instruction manuals and maybe a little bit nonfiction. I'm very much a fiction person. I don't find myself interested in historical fiction so much because it feels like a lie in a lot of ways. Like, oh, here's this child who hung out with Benjamin Franklin. That child did not hang out with Benjamin Franklin. You're telling me a lie right here. And it seems like a self-insert fan fiction of history if you think about it. Which, I don't like that so much. I also find it difficult to read nonfiction unless it's something that particularly interests me. For instance, I recently read The Life and Death of WCW. I like wrestling. So I read a nonfiction book about the history of a wrestling company. That would be very interesting to me. Whereas I probably wouldn't want to read a book about Madame Curie. She seems like an interesting person. I don't want to know about her life. It benefits me in no way to know Madame Curie's life story. As harsh as that sounds, but there's a lot I am interested in. I like to read sci-fi from time to time. I still like to read young adult fiction. I like dramas. In particular, I'll sometimes read plays or short stories. I definitely like to read poetry. Poetry is a facet of my being because it's so interesting to describe or to use the tricks that to write in stanza form, or use various tricks to describe something, an event, or even your emotions using just line form. And I think that's fascinating. So poetry is pretty important to me in that way. And I think that's all the questions I have. If you have any additional questions for me, feel free to comment below. Or if you just have something that you want to point out, yeah, feel free to comment below. Other than that, have a weird time in the world, and that's pretty much the end of my video. Goodbye.